all great stories start exactly the same way. Once upon a time, there was a guy, this is what he did, and he lived happily ever after. You know, I think that the story that we live is not dissimilar, right? You are either the hero or the GOAT. And a lot of it has to do with how you deal with the adversity along that journey towards your happily ever after, right? And I think that, you know, when you understand this conflict climax resolution, you understand that there's an arc to success. There's an arc to achievement. There's an arc to the happily ever after. And it starts out, right? I mean, on a scale, if you were thinking of a continuum of success and failure for sales or for entrepreneurs, most people start off with great ideas of what they want to achieve, this vision of what they want to achieve, and somewhere along that line they get knocked down. And we've talked about it in the past that I believe that the key is how we deal with adversity. What we become and how we're defined ultimately is our ability to handle this. And you know, if you were to think about swagger, and we talked about this in the last episode about sales swagger is a place where when people are successful, they don't care on whether or not someone says yes or no. And there's really two ways to get there. We talked about this. We talked about that you can have more money than you need, or you have what you feel like you have unlimited amount of opportunity. And because it's not a zero-sum game, because opportunity isn't a scarce resource, it's really comes down to three things. It comes down to effort, how much activity you're willing to generate. It comes down to your skill set, how much you're investing in your personal development, and it comes down to your efficiency, how you use every hour in the day. Are you wasting time on frivolous activity, or are you investing in the right types of things? And you know, if you think about most people in life, what happens is, in the story, they hit adversity and they decide not to go forward, right? That path to happily ever after moves through adversity. And so they settle for complacency. And so adversity actually comes in multiple ways. When we're on a journey as an entrepreneur, adversity comes from your peers, from people that you care about, right? There's individual adversity that we deal with that's actually on a people level. And they're the ones that tell you can't do it. And truthfully, that adversity, you have to refrain from engaging in it altogether. And when you silence that adversity, you focus on your happily ever after, you have to understand that nobody ever will understand what your vision of the future is. They can't empathize. Empathy is not something, when you talk about success and achievement, it's yours and uniquely yours. And so they can't understand, and they're not willing to pay the price, and they're not willing to deal with the hardship that you're willing to deal with. And so the second type of adversity comes actually with regard to fatigue. As a professional, as a salesperson, what you need to understand is fatigue is part of the journey, right? It's a muscle. Just like in the gym, you don't jump on a treadmill and run 25 miles, right? You work up to a place. And I remember when I started out in sales, right? The first day I was handed a phone book and a phone, and I started dialing. What I had to do is I had to create discipline. I had to create a structure for myself. I had to figure out a way that I was going to force myself to get the results. And so I asked people what the ratios were, and interestingly enough, the ratios really haven't changed a lot in the last 25 years. What I found out pretty quickly was that 40 dials, right, 40 outbound calls in an hour would lead to 15 conversations, 15 people that actually pick up the phone and begin to talk with me. Of those 15, 7 would hang up right away. They would just completely dismiss. And of the remaining 8 people that I talked to, I knew that even if I was terrible, even if my skill set was awful, I was able to convert one of those people. And what I knew was, in order to have the success that I wanted, I needed to set 8 appointments every single day. So 8 hours of 40 dials, 320 dials. Now, what's really hard to comprehend is there were 312 failures that day that at any point I could have stopped dialing. I could have said, this is too painful, it's not worth it, and I could not move forward. And you know what? I would have settled for mediocrity. The interesting thing is that your success becomes incremental with large volume. And what a lot of salespeople do is they fail to move forward to that place where they have enough appointments where if this one doesn't go right, so what? The next one will. The one after that will, or the one after that, or the one after that. When you perpetually commit yourself to this work, ultimately your success is a foregone conclusion. You know, a lot of times it's not the product, it's not the market, it's not the business you're in, it's not the idea that you have, it's just a lack of shots, right? Wayne Gretzky never scored a goal on a shot he didn't take. I know I'm destroying that quote, but the idea here in sales is exactly the same thing. You can't be the great one unless you take a lot of shots. And the only way you take a lot of shots is if you make a lot of dials. And those dials will lead to appointments. And I think that this first ultimate like necessary evil in sales, if you want to call it evil, I actually love the process of getting on the phone, but I don't like the rejection, no more than anybody else does. But if you want happily ever after, if you want that reality, you've got to move through the prospecting fatigue, and you got to figure a way to move past it. And I think the only way that you do it is that the goal, the achievement that you want, has to be more satisfying than the pain of settling for mediocrity, than the pain of really just being average. Like, who wants to be average? Who wants to meander from sales job to sales job, or from business to business to business? You just need to do more of what you're doing. And this is probably one of the great, principles of being successful and getting to Sales Swagger.